Why is South Africa the only African country where the population of white colonizers and their descendants remained throughout the 20th century and even after the 20th century? So South Africa is kind of exceptional, isn't it? In the terms of uh, the colonizers remaining after decolonization, right? When you look at nations like Mozambique, when you look at Angola, when you look at Zimbabwe, Kenya, etc., a lot of a significant portion of the colonizers' population left after decolonization. When it comes to South Africa, I think it's at least 5 million white people still live there. So South Africa is definitely exceptional in this case. So why is that? So first of all, the colonizers' roots, the settlers' roots go deep in South Africa. South Africa was colonized by Europeans, Dutch primarily, eventually the English also. So it all begins in the 17th century. So it's centuries old. And these people, they set down deep roots in the land and they develop their own distinct identity, which is no longer purely European. It's the Afrikaner identity. They have their own dialect of Dutch, Afrikaner. And yeah, so their entire identity is distinct from the English or Dutch identity. That's one of the causes. The roots go so deep in South Africa. And unlike the other countries in Africa that decolonized, for example, Algeria, you had a war of independence, a brutally violent war of independence in Algeria. And all white people were essentially expelled from Africa, brutally, through force, as a consequence of Algeria winning their war of independence. When it comes to various other African nations, Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, and so on and so forth, Zimbabwe, you had, essentially the colonizers being forced off, right? In Zimbabwe, you still have a significant non-negligible white population. In Botswana, which are the African nations? Let's take a look at the map. Botswana, Namibia, you still have white populations. Zimbabwe, you have a reasonably visible, non-trivially small white population. Kenya, you have a very few white people now, and so on. But South Africa, yeah. So in all these other nations, there was a violent overthrow of colonialism, more or less, not entirely always the same, but yeah. But in South Africa, there was a negotiated transfer of power. Okay, it was a negotiated transfer of power. The path to majority rule in South Africa did not come about through violent overthrow of the government or a revolution. It came through negotiations, and the colonizers voluntarily handed over power to the majority population of the country. Right, the ANC was unbanned, Nelson Mandela was rehabilitated, and so on and so forth. Right, that's another contributing factor. And most importantly, the economic structure in South Africa, it would have collapsed if the white people left. Okay, the white presence in South Africa was and still is very materially useful to the South African economy. It is useful to the old elite, of course, the white people, and also the new elites, the people who run the South African government today. And that's why the white people still remain. There are obviously tensions and so on. From time to time, you have some issues. Elon Musk keeps complaining that there is a genocide of white people happening in South Africa. I'm not sure how true or false that is. I haven't looked into it. So there are obviously issues, but the white population is still central in some ways to the South African economy. And they have very deep roots in South Africa. And now you have white people marrying black people, and also eventually after a few generations, it may not be an issue anymore, possibly. So that's why South Africa is an exception among the African countries, in the sense that their white population more or less remained intact after the transfer of power.